Good morning and welcome to Ask Wildman. My name is Miles Bassett, and this is an open Q&A produced by Wildman Web Solutions. We are here to answer your questions on technology, business, marketing, anything else you want to ask us about. My team and I are on here every week, live streaming to our social channels, currently live streaming to Facebook, YouTube, and our Twitch account. So we jump on here every week, Wednesdays at 11 to answer your questions. If you have any questions about anything here, again, we are a digital marketing firm, so generally kind of have our questions there. But hey, if you just want to jump in and be part of the conversation, say hi, ask us how our day is going, please throw that in the comments below. If you're not watching us live, and you still want to be part of the conversation, you can email us at askwildman@wildmanweb.com. I've got that address scrolling below me here in this crawler. So you can email us there and we will either respond to you there in email or we will respond to you next week on this live stream. We do use those emails as kind of the subject matter for next week's show a lot. So make sure to check back in next week. Again, live streaming to our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch account. So pick your poison there and watch us live every Wednesday at 11. If you haven't checked it out already, please go to our website. We've got tons of other free resources there. Our website is wildmanweb.com. I can put that up here, I think. Yeah. So wildmanweb.com, we've got tons of free resources. We do this show every week as a resource to small business owners out there and to members of our community that are trying to get online, maybe putting their business online for the first time, or maybe trying to leverage their online presence a little bit more than they have previously. A lot of people, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, started leveraging their online presence a whole lot more over the last year or two and came to us with questions on questions on questions. So we thought we'd put this out here, again, doing this live stream every week to answer those questions, put lots of information out there. We started doing a bunch of other stuff on our website as well. So go to wildmanweb.com and then go to the resources drop down. We've got tons of articles there, free software, tools. We've got this show on there archived. So if a member of my team or I said something brilliant a few weeks ago, you can jump on there and see what we said a few weeks ago. We've got the video and a full transcript of the show up there on the archive section. Also, make sure to sign up for our email newsletter. We've got a newsletter on there. Promise it's not too salesy. We're not going to spam you. We send it out roughly once a week. And it's just news updates for the new big thing that Google is doing, or how to optimize your website, or how to set up videos properly. It's just tips and tricks on existing in this new digital world of ours. So make sure to check that out and subscribe to our newsletter. That's again on our website at wildmanweb.com. All right, without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and start with the Q&A portion of this show. Again, if you have any questions, please throw those in the comments below, or if you're catching this later, please email us at askwildman@wildmanweb.com. We'll get to you next week. But to help me answer some of these questions, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my partner, Mike Hanna. Mike, hello, you're on.
Hello.
You're live.
Good morning. I am alive, Miles. I can feel it flowing through my veins right now. And happy to be here with you this morning, sir. How in the heck
I meant
are
to
you
say
doing?
you're live, as in you're live on air, but I'm also glad that you're alive. That's also a bonus.
Some people have called me a live wire before too, but that's a whole other issue.
That's also true. Yeah. Well, happy to have you on here. Again, we're here to answer your questions. So anyone out there watching live, I can see we've got a couple of people popping in here. Throw your questions or comments in the comments below. Love to this to be more of a two-way conversation than a lecture here. So if you have any experience in what we're talking about, you've seen some updates that we haven't or something like that, feel free to throw those in and we'll address those as the comments come up. And if your comment's good, we can feature it on this show and we can talk about it, answer your questions. Yeah, let's get this show going.
Sometimes the comment doesn't even have to be good. It just has to be better than mine. And then Miles has some better content to use.
True. So. We got some.
Feel free.
We got a pretty low bar to clear here, guys. Just throw some stuff out there. It's probably going to be better than what we have to offer. Anyway, so again, go to wildmanweb.com. We got awesome stuff there. Comment below your questions. But I think we're going to start the day off with a sort of an open discussion here between Mike and I. We had a relatively interesting conversation with a a new business here in town.
That we cannot say anything about.
We're not going to say anything about or anything client confidentiality. You know, we can't just throw everything out there. But it was really interesting talking with people who are trying to start something new, trying to create something new, who have a lot of passion, who have a lot of great ideas. And then they come to us for some of the nuts and bolts of everything, getting stuff out there, getting online presence set up and advertising, marketing, that kind of thing. But it's always so much fun to have those conversations with people and to hear all these new ideas. I was actually telling someone this morning at 1 Million Cups, if you haven't checked that out, meeting every Wednesday morning. We're actually back in person now. But someone asked, you know, what's your favorite part of your job? And I said that at least one of my favorite parts of this, I don't know if it's the favorite, but it's definitely up there. It's just that we get to work ourselves into other businesses. In order to, you know, effectively market them and effectively work with them, we kind of have to treat ourselves as a member of that company. We have to learn a lot about how that company works, how that industry works, all the details in there to the point where it feels like we're part of the team. So I get to learn so much about different industries and different companies out there, different individuals, whether we're working with a construction company or a coffee shop. You know, we got to learn the nuts and bolts of that business and learn about that industry and also about those individuals so we can properly represent their brand. So, you know, that's always really exciting. But when we are working with someone who's just starting something up for the first time, you know, they don't have a brand put together, they don't have the business completely 100% out there. That is definitely some of the most enjoyable conversations for me anyway. So I want to dedicate a little bit of this show just to talking about starting a new business, putting together a new wing of your business, putting together a new a product or an offering for your business, maybe revamping your brand or your overall messaging or something. But those sort of early steps in creating either a new business or a new portion of an existing business. Mike, did I leave anything out there in my setup of this conversation?
No, I think you nailed it on the head, and you actually mentioned something there that got my wheels turning, and I'm going to mention I'm going to mention it even though it is extremely self-serving. So I'm going to tell you that right now. The whole rest of the program will be helpful information, value, and all that. Right now, though, I'm going to toot our own horn. Well, it's not really tooting our own horn. I guess it's showing how we're a lot different than some other agencies or organizations out there, because a lot of people don't like that part of the job. You know, they want to just do what they do, right? They want to, you know, do digital ads or SEO or build websites or whatever, and they want to learn one or two types of businesses, and then that's all they want to do all day long is keep doing that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying they're good, they're bad. I'm just saying that's different. How we are is that we would get bored yesterday, you know, if we started today, just doing the same thing over and over again. And we like that, you know, going into different areas and putting on different hats and learning different lingos and, you know, and understanding the trade and the industry. And so that is something that, yeah, I think both of us really enjoy doing, and it makes the job, quote unquote, fun, you know, for us when we're able to, you know, mix and match the different types of businesses that we're working with. And that's something that certainly is a little bit of a rarity in this business. So maybe we're just a couple of oddballs here, Miles, but yeah,
I'm okay with that.
Let's get into talk about, you know, this topic without talking about who the specific, client, you know, that we were working with recently or that we're still working with, but this is something that we do quite a bit. And so whether you are starting a new business, you're starting a new chapter in your business, or you're just adding a new product, you know, line or something like that to your business, or, you know, this is budget season, you know, over the next course of the next few weeks and months for a lot of businesses. And so even if you're just trying to figure out, okay, well, how do we rebudget, you know, for next year, allocate different resources, different capital to different things. These are the kind of exercises that you're going to do, even if you aren't, quote unquote, starting over, you know, from scratch. So I don't know, Miles, if you wanted me just to kind of give a vague overview of what I did with this client the other day, and then we can kind of go through, that, or how you exactly wanted me to
Yeah, no, I didn't have
expand?
a structure in mind or anything. I just thought we could open it up
Okay.
here, and it was interesting enough that we could probably find a couple of helpful points in there along the
Yeah,
conversation.
sure.
But yeah, let's go
Certainly.
ahead and start there.
Okay. So obviously, when you're starting on a new business, or you're starting on a new product, or anything like that, the first question is going to be, well, what's this thing going to be worth to the market, right? And a lot of times, we're able to just do some basic market research and find out, well, these are similar products, these are similar services, et cetera. This is a similar type of business, and here's what they're charging, and here's what their gross is, and all that. Uh, in this particular case, Miles, which I can't really go into detail about, this was different because there really wasn't anything like that yet on the market. There were some things that were in the similar wheelhouse. It wasn't a completely new mousetrap. They were definitely building a better mousetrap, but there was no similar, better mousetrap to them on the marketplace,
So
right?
verifying this is not a mousetrap company.
This is not a mousetrap.
It is a
It
figure of
could be.
speech.
Maybe we could use that, yeah, as an example. But so it obviously makes this a little bit harder, right? Because we
Yeah.
can't just have a qualified comparison, right? So the first thing in every business, should know this part, or you probably shouldn't be in business. You have to figure out is, what are our hard costs, right? What are our hard costs? What are our variable costs? What are our fixed costs, et cetera, in order to make this product, in order to keep this business open. And so we know we at least have to cross that line, right? Where we get into a little bit of a trickier situation is where we have to figure out what is a reasonable margin for us that is still going to sell an appropriate amount of volume for whatever our inventory or production capabilities may be. And the thing that I see that really trips up people is, where is that middle squeeze for my customer acquisition cost? And especially if you're dealing with a new product line, unfortunately, the answer is we're not really sure. And the market is the market. And so that's why, especially large companies, they do so much consumer research and development and test and focus groups, et cetera, before they ever put something on a storefront or online or something like that. Now, as a small business, we can be a little bit more nimble than that, because if nobody knows who I am and I put up products on my store and nobody buys them, and then I have to lower the price, it's not a big deal. If Target does that, it's a pretty big deal, right? They're going to get a whole lot of backlash from their customers. They're going to notice that. So the thing that we have to figure out in that margin is, what is a good customer acquisition cost? So what is the price that I'm willing to pay in order to get a customer? And this is something that's going to, of course, depend on numerous factors, but the most important one perhaps is, what is my customer frequency? What is my retention rate or my customer frequency? How many times can I make a sale, and how often to that person can I sell something? Now, again, this is where with this company, we had a unique situation, because this product theoretically will last forever, right? As a lifetime warranty. So you can't sell that product numerous times to the same person, right? Unless they're buying them as gifts. There's the little rub there. Okay, so you have to figure in a little bit higher margin, but maybe not as high as the customer acquisition cost. But why do I have to have a higher margin? Because I'm not going to be able to sell this thing 3, 4, 5 times, right? Let me use here's a good example we can use, Miles. You're gonna love this.
Oh boy. I love it when he starts a sentence like that. It usually means the opposite.
Let's take the Kirby Vacuum Company. Okay, Kirby Vacuum Company, wonderful company, American made, out there in Cleveland, Ohio. Okay, it's owned by Berkshire Hathaway, one of Warren Buffett's subsidiaries, and it is built to last. Right? If you're not familiar with it, it's literally a chrome like piece of steel, very high-end vacuum that is literally meant to last forever. I've seen some of them that are 70, 80, close to 100 years old, still pulling up dirt. Okay. So this is a way, way different model, though, than when I walk into a Walmart and I buy a vacuum, right? A vacuum. Because first of all, those aren't really vacuums. Like they're not actually going to form a suction seal and get the dirt up. Because that's a whole other story. I'm not going to go down that road. Okay. But my
He gets a
point is,
little bit too into his vacuums. People, or
my,
for people who don't know Mike here, but
like, don't get me started. Okay. But the point being is when I buy a Hoover, a Bissell, a Thistle, whatever the hell it is, right, at Walmart, that is not built to last. Their business model is that I'm going to come back in the next 12, 18, 24 months, and I'm going to buy another Bissell, Hoover, Dirt Devil, whatever it is. And so that's where their margin is a completely different story than when you're selling a product that's supposed to last forever. Okay. So that's the first thing, that we really need to understand about the product is what is the buying cycle of this product, both in terms of frequency and both in terms of sales, meaning the psychological effect that I need to put somebody through in order to buy something. And we talk about this a lot, Miles, but it's really important, right? I use this example all the time of the Corvettes, right? If I'm going to sell somebody a Corvette at $75,000 or whatever they go for these days, that's a long buying funnel. People don't wake up every day and say, I'm going to buy a Corvette. It's like a once in a lifetime, maybe purchase for the average person, right? But if I say, I'm going to sell Corvettes for a nickel today, nobody has to think about that. So again, this all comes into me understanding what is my customer journey. Because obviously I can't make any money if I sell Corvettes for a nickel, but I can sell a lot of them. So I have to figure out where's that balance. Where's that balance between what the market wants realistically and what I'm able to charge above that in order to get a profit margin. And again, until we actually get market feedback, we really don't know. And like no client wants to hear that. You mean I gotta put it out there before I really know? Yeah, you do.
you can make kind of an educated guess.
Exactly. But we
Not,
have formulas that we can use in order to get pretty darn close usually. And that formula is, like I said, the linchpin in figuring it out is the customer acquisition cost, the frequency, and the retention rate of a customer. But until I really have sales happening, I'm not going to know those things, and that's why, usually when somebody invests in a company, they want to see sales, they don't just want to see your business plan to really know how somebody's going to react to it. So that's a roundabout way of explaining, kind of the hidden little secret into figuring out what your margin is going to be, is that you have to figure out what is a good customer acquisition cost. And you have to be a little bit flexible with that too, is what I'm saying, because that could change as you get feedback back from the market, right? The market is the market is the market is the market. We always have to listen to what the market wants and the market says, because we could be charging too much. We could be charging too little, And so that's why first thing we need to do is we need to do our research and we need to come up with a plan. We use a 7-step marketing plan, but it's just a plan. You also have to be able to react, read the market, and adjust things as you go along. And so that's why the more planning you can do before you launch something, the better. And then, something that you also really need to understand, and these are, we're obviously just kind of hitting these things, very surface base here. I mean, these are long conversations that you're going to have with your team. But you also really need to understand why somebody's going to buy something and what is that psychological process that they're going to go through. What are they actually buying? And how are you going to tell that story and show that story to them? And I don't think a lot of people put enough time into understanding the answers to those questions before they launch a product or a business or they start marketing it. Because that is something that I feel, at least, that you actually have the ability to know more on the front end than you do just about, well, they're going to like it $19.99 or $23.99. But why are they even going to buy the thing or pick it up or look at it or go to your website or read your blog? Or why before the what? Even before the who, right? because so that's the critical thing to unpack. And so again, I'm not going to go into, I'll try to find an example, but with this company that we were working with, that was the thing that was the really unique thing. And there were several unique things about it, but it was the why factor of why this mousetrap is better and why you're going to be able to tell that story, that I was like, okay, these guys have something here. The why factor, like, okay, let's use Kirby vacuum. Why does somebody buy, and they don't always cost us, why does somebody buy, $2,000-$3,000 vacuum when you could buy a $100 or $200 vacuum? Because they were shown that they could actually get the dirt out of the carpet. Why did they buy the original vacuum? Why did they take it out of the closet once or twice a week? Why do they go over to the wall and plug it in? Why do they stand there and go over every square inch of their home with it? It's to get the dirt out. So if you can show somebody that what they're doing is not only a waste of money, it's a waste of time, and that they're not actually doing the thing, the why of why they did all these things to begin with, all of a sudden you've completely opened up their mind to a new product or a new service. And at that point, price is really irrelevant. And that's why I'm saying that you can figure this stuff out easier than you can the end price. Because if you figure out the why, again, for most people, unless they can't afford it, price is not an issue. I want to get the dirt out. That's the issue.
I like the analogy you've actually used before, I believe on the show, but I know in conversations between us when you talked about, I think a hardware store selling a hammer and a nail. It's not really about the hammer or the nail. You're not going to sell it by telling them how good this hammer is or how perfect this nail is. You figure out what they're trying to do. Well, it turns out they're trying to hang a picture of their grandma, and every time that they see that picture, it makes them think of X, Y, and Z amazing memories with their grandmother, and that's the why. The hammer and the nail are just sort of sideshows to this entire thing, where you are actually they're actually trying to do something. So if you can get through to that why, what are they actually trying to do with this, then you don't have to convince them as to how great your hammer is.
100%. It sells itself, right? At that point, there's no selling. It's, I want the thing that does the thing that I want it to do. Case over, right? And I swear I'm gonna get off the Kirby company after this point, okay? But because I could spend all day on this. But this is why the Kirby company, to this day, some would say to a fault, I may have even said that at some point, but this is why they will not advertise any other way than showing you a demo in your home with the vacuum that you use every single day. And you think about it, like, well, that seems kind of crazy, right? In 2021, because I could reach way more people. I could use the internet. I could use cable. I could use radio. I could reach all these people with my message about how this was the greatest vacuum cleaner that had ever been built. It's American made, lifetime warranty, gets all the dirt out, a HEPA filter, NASA technology, right? But until I can actually show somebody the depth of the why, all of that is noise. And so that's why 100 freaking years ago, they decided we're only going to sell this thing direct to consumer in their home with their vacuum next to it. Because that is the way that we're going to get people to understand that why 100%. And at that point, the price is irrelevant. And that's why they can charge $3,000 for a piece of equipment that probably costs $180 at the factory, maybe $250 at the factory. That's insane margin, right? Okay. Now, the Hoover, they got a decent margin too. They don't have that kind of a margin. But again, they want you to come back every other year and buy another Hoover. And they don't give a crap about dirt coming out or the thing breaking or whatever. That's great. That makes more money for them. So you have to understand your whole psychology of where your product is, where your service is, and where that fits in with the buying frequency and the buying psychology of your end user. And then you have to understand how am I going to effectively get that why story across? And showing is always better than telling.
I think this illustrates pretty well.
Sorry
I'm
about that,
falling off
Miles.
the world there.
Yeah.
This illustrates pretty well the difference between sales and marketing. I think we hear those words together a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Sales and marketing, and they're two very different things. They're kind of sides of the two sides of the same coin. They're obviously related, but very different things here. And this this illustrates that pretty well. Where sales, you are worried more about that number. What is the actual number you're putting here? What is the margin that you have on it? How many of these things can we get out there? But the marketing is the storytelling. That's really where you get to that why. That's where you're explaining your product. I was just telling one of our new hires the other day, it's like, don't go out and just say, hey, we'll give you a website for X amount. That's not how we do things here. It's instead, find a business owner, talk to them, figure out what their business is about, learn about them, learn about the entirety of their business from A to Z, from the floor to the ceiling, everything about that business. And then we can start figuring out what that why is and provide solutions to real world problems that they're having. It's not just, trying to fill everything with the same answer every single time. You've got to find the actual problem there and then a solution. Surprise, surprise, we named our company Wildman Web Solutions. There's a reason for that. I also think it's important to throw in, all the examples that we've used in this conversation so far have been, kind of cheap, crappy products that need to be sold every couple of months, couple of years, whatever, versus something with a lifetime value or a very long buying funnel because it's just going to last forever. When that's not always the case here. Some things just need to be bought more frequently. Talk about the restaurant industry, where we're operating on fairly low margins and require people to come in very regularly. You either need a strong stream of new people coming in and trying your restaurant all the time, or you need a very solid base of regulars that come in all the time. So that's not because your food's crap, your service is crap, or anything like that. That's just kind of how the industry works, and you're relying on people having that fairly short buying funnel and coming in very frequently. Versus, I don't know, we work with contractors all the time. Think like a roof or something, where you don't go out and buy a new roof every day, and that's not necessarily even about the quality of your roof, although that's part of it for sure. But hopefully you're not buying another roof for 10, 15, maybe more years. And at that point, 15 years later, when your roof is ready for a refresh here, I want you to come back to me.
Yeah.
So there are some other variables in there, some other industries in there. It's not just about, products made to last and designed. What is it? Obsolescence? Is that the word? Something like that.
So. Well, and a really important term that people, hopefully understand, but if they don't, you need to understand that you're alluding to here, Miles, is lifetime value. You need to understand. I
accidentally said that in there. I used it wrongly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. LTV, or lifetime value, is what is a customer worth to you, basically, or at least that's usually how I phrase it to a business owner, right? And we were kind of dancing around that before, but yeah, that is something along with your churn and your frequency and your cost of acquisition that you need to figure out as soon as humanly possible. What is my lifetime value? And again, it's not a static number, because over time, what we're trying to do through our marketing, through our sales, through our retention, through our customer service, through our making sure our marketing bridge doesn't have full of holes, is we're trying to always increase that lifetime value of a customer. And so that's where, loyalty reward programs and things like that we talk about, all the time. That's what those things are designed to do, is how can I increase the lifetime value of a customer? I always use the Domino's example because that's how they came back from the abyss, pretty much. That thing was almost dead as a doornail, and then they figured out, they solved a problem.
They made their pizza suck less.
They made their pizza suck less, but I'm talking about even before that, the 30 minutes or less.
Yeah.
Right? They figured out the problem. People are busy. People order pizza delivery when they don't want to cook and they have things going on. They don't want to wait an hour, 15, hour and a half. They want to know when it's coming. They figure that out. They put some quality controls in place. They grew their lifetime value immensely, and it saved the freaking company. So yeah, that's just super, super important
You're
stuff.
going to behave a lot differently if you think that, the person coming to your restaurant that's going to spend $30 and you get to keep two of those dollars. You think that customer is now worth $2. But
Right.
if you see that person coming in twice a week for the next 10 years, all of a sudden you're going to behave very differently, and you're going to look at acquiring that customer in a very new light.
And that's what Domino's had to retrain their franchise owners. Mm-hmm. And they had to tell them, look, every single time a new customer comes through the door, that is at least $4,000. I think that's what they were attributing their lifetime value at back then. That's $4,000 coming through your door unless you screw that up, right? So don't think about it as a $14.99 medium pizza on a Wednesday night. Think about it as $4,000, and do the job that you're going to need to do to get $4,000 in return. And when you think about it like that, yeah, you start to focus on retention, you start to focus on customer service, and it's a whole cohesive, what am I trying to say? Synergy that you got to create inside your business. You can't have holes there in the marketing bridge.
Well, I think we kind of hit that topic here. Sure. Hopefully there was some interesting number or some interesting stats in there, some interesting information. Again, this applies to not just new businesses, although that's kind of where we were coming at it for this conversation, but to existing businesses. If you are revamping a part of your business, you're coming out with a new product line, a new service, you're just kind of rebranding here, you're wanting to lean into an underappreciated side of your business, knowing your numbers here, understanding the lifetime value of a customer, really dialing in those margins and filling any gaps that you have there, getting your messaging out there properly so that people understand the why. That is where you're going to see the greatest success here. Instead of getting bogged down and getting exactly that right price point up front, or some of the other details that I think people get far too focused on. I think if you hit those points, regardless of what you're trying to do, again, starting a new business or just leaning into something new within an existing business, that's where you're going to see the biggest return. Mm-hmm.
Don't waste your money on inferior vacuum products.
Also, yes, that's clearly what we learned.
That will include a Dyson, by the way. I know you Dyson people out there are thinking, he's not talking about my Dyson. That thing's made in England. It's premium. No, it's a piece of junk. Sorry. All right, Miles, should we get to the news? We'll
do another show somewhere. This is a segment. Recurring segment of Mike goes off on vacuums.
The Dyson people always want to fight me. They're very proud of their Dysons.
Yeah, that's a different show. That is a very different show.
All right. Yeah, at least we had fun for a while.
All right, so a good time to pull back here. Again, this is Ask Wildman, produced by Wildman Web Solutions. My partner here, Mike, and I jump on every week, live streaming Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, to answer questions, kind of go over some topics that we get over the week, and hopefully just put out some good information, good resources for business owners or anyone within our local business community. So make sure to check in here every Wednesday at 11. Pick your social media channel of choice there, or watch us later. You can still send us stuff by emailing us at askwildman@wildmanweb.com. Or just go to wildmanweb.com. We've got tons of stuff up there, great resources, all tons and tons of free resources there. So check that out. My team and I really, we put a lot of work into that site. So spend some time there and see what we have to offer. As far as those resources go. So we're a little over halfway through the show here. If anyone has any questions or wants to comment on our conversation here, just throw those in the comments. We'll kind of hit those as they come up. Otherwise, I think it's probably time to turn to the news desk here, go over some headlines over the last week or so, and kind of get our points on it. Mike, that sound good to you?
Yeah. Let's hit the news. All right. Well, I'm going to start out with maybe what some people might think is some bad news, but I promise we're going to get we're going to get this thing positive. Okay.
All right.
Um, Man, it's a long one. Okay. I'm going to try to keep this succinct. Headline: We're going back to the drawing board. DTC brands brace for more anti-tracking headaches. Already saddled with the rising cost of customer acquisition, profitability for digital native brands has just gotten even more challenging. No, this isn't an old article. This is from yesterday. It's just more of the same, folks. Since Apple began asking users whether they would allow their online activities to be tracked, only a small percentage have agreed. That spells trouble for direct-to-consumer players who relied heavily on social media apps as part of their advertising and customer acquisition strategy in the past. We have talked about this, Christ, almost a year now. Yeah,
Yeah.
it seems like. But
It's a big change.
It's a big change, Miles, and we're getting some more data back. And so I'm going to go through this and then let's open it up for discussion here. Apple's iOS 14.5, as we already discussed, introduced privacy protections that require app to ask permission. Only 17% of users are allowing apps to track their online activity at a weekly rate. Google also plans to deploy its privacy initiative, which will phase out third-party cookies forever in 2023. I think it's a scramble, said Alex Song, CEO of growth acceleration platform Dojo Mojo. That's a hell of a name. We're approximately 4 or 5 months into the thrash, and I think everyone's trying to figure out where to allocate their capital most effectively. DTC companies have focused a large part of their spending dollars on third-party channels like Facebook, Instagram, and Google Ads to build their brand and traffic for years. But with these new tracking regulations, DTC brands, especially startups, may have trouble informing future merchandising decisions without data on the effectiveness of their ads. And without effective targeting, the cost of customer acquisition ultimately goes up. Here's another quote from Alex Song. For the most part, if you cannot figure out digital advertising, you cannot scale past 3 million in top line. Full stop. All right. Well, there's plenty more in this article to get to, but let's just stop right there because that was a lot. And back up and maybe just give a little bit of context here for people who aren't living and breathing this every day like we are. So DTC brands especially, but really all small, medium, and even large businesses out there have really been aggressively growing the last 7 years or so. Basically because off of the back of these third-party platforms, right? Like Facebook and Google Ads and Instagram and et cetera, et cetera. And it's been incredible, right? We've had this amazing ROI, this amazing kind of, golden era, if you will, is what I was calling it, as it was happening. And now the tables have changed, and like I said, we've been talking about this all year. And we're going to talk here in a minute about, again, what can we do to combat this? Because, we got to always be thinking about solutions, but it's important that we understand, these issues. And so what this is basically meaning is that, no, this is not DTC brands aren't collapsing. They're not folding, but things are becoming more expensive, right? It's becoming that customer acquisition cost that we were talking about earlier is growing. Okay, it's getting bigger for the vast majority of brands. And this is something that we talked about a couple of weeks ago when Facebook and Google released their earnings reports, that they're profiting, their profit is skyrocketing. And they directly said it's because our ads are becoming more expensive, right? And again, none of this is a surprise, all right? We've been talking about this for years and years at this point. But what does that mean for us? Well, it basically means a couple things. It means that we're going to have to work smarter instead of harder, and we're not going to really know as much as we did before, right? The reporting and the data that we're getting back is not as reliable as it was before. So we don't know as well who's clicking our ads, who's purchasing it, et cetera, et cetera. We're also not able to use some of the tracking methods that we have in the past to the same level of effectiveness. Okay. Again, it's not like these things have completely gone away. It's harder to do. Okay. So again, what is the main premise of this article is that basically everyone in the advertising and marketing industry right now is going back to the drawing board, right? And again, we weren't surprised by this. It doesn't really catch us off guard. So we've been at the drawing board for a while and trying new things and new techniques. But, all in all, this is about how do I find a better connection with my end consumer? And so how can I create content that is going to make that engagement and that connection? And that is not changing at all, And so there are certain marketing principles that are holding true here and have held true through all of these different transitions that we've gone through in digital and traditional marketing over the past 10 or 15 years. And so that's what we're trying to hone in on. There are certain tactics, if we want to talk about actual tactics, we'll get into it here for a minute, that are still working. Like we talked about at the very beginning of the year, we said, put marketing budget toward video because of these things that were coming down the pipe. So I'm going to say it again because I know people are starting to think about their budgets for next year. It's the same story, folks. Put marketing budget toward video for 2022. Okay? Because that is a hack. That is, for lack of a better term, a tactic that we can use to get around some of these limitations that we now have with things like pixels. Is that
Tomorrow's news today? Ask Wildman.
Is that what we do is we show people videos and then we retarget to those people who watch and engage with the videos. That hasn't gone away. Okay, so I'll give everybody a little freebie right there. But it's so important. You can't figure this out 9 months later and then go back and be like, oh, let me try to do that. Like, you have to plan it out. Okay, you have to plan out what you're going to say because, again, what you say is more important than who you say it to. I'd much rather say the right thing to the wrong person than say the wrong thing to the right person. Okay, so this stuff takes planning, it takes strategy, it takes understanding that why, and you need to start.
It takes time to collect that data as well. That's another point that people kind of gloss over or forget about. It's like as soon as you start putting, even if you put all the time and effort into producing that perfect video, you're not going to get that useful data tomorrow. It's going to take time to have it out there, to have people see it, to see who was interested in it, and to retarget them with another message. Like, it's going to take some time. So if you haven't started on it, then you need to get started on this stuff yesterday.
The golden rule is long-term and consistent. But again, it also depends on your buying funnel, right? If I'm selling Corvettes for a nickel, I'm not going to be long-term and consistent, right? If I'm selling Corvettes, I better be long-term and consistent. Okay. Here's some good data here. All right. Going into cost of acquisition, cost rising. Consumer privacy comes at a hefty cost for DTC brands. Acquiring customers online has only gotten pricier through the years, as DTC brands have burned millions of dollars, all in the name of earning the love of consumers. For the most part, if you cannot figure out, I just gave that quote. In a recent IPO, Allbirds revealed that it had spent $55.3 million in marketing-related expenses in 2020. That's 25% of its net revenue. Holy smokes. And up from $44.4 billion in 2019. Casper spent $156.8 million on advertising expenses, about 32% of its net revenue. Jiminy. And $155 million in 2019. Wayfair, which is a really fast-growing DTC furniture brand, spent $1.4 billion in 2020, roughly 10% of its net revenue, and $1.1 in 2019. All three have racked up huge losses, and the pandemic-driven boom in household goods for Wayfair has finally turned a profit. A momentum home retailers might not be able to sustain. If your advertising becomes less efficient, then that certainly has an impact. It means that there are more ways that your customer acquisition goes up, said Andrew Frank, research vice president at Gartner. There's a lot of friction. That's right, Frank. I would say this adds to the whole process of building brand relationships with customers. Holy smokes, I just said that. Mr. Frank, I am in agreement with you. Yeah, So like what he just said, this just goes back to, we have to really build a brand. We have to build a relationship with our consumers, and then we have to focus on retention, because if our customer acquisition cost is going up, the more that we can focus on retention. With Miles had a really good study about this, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, we can vastly improve our bottom line. I can't pull that stat up that you gave us, Miles, but I know it was impressive, right? That if you just a little bit increase your retention, you're really going to increase your bottom line. And that is becoming even more important as our customer acquisition costs go up. Okay. We could spend all day on just this one, Miles. So I think I'm going to keep going unless you have something
Yeah,
that
well,
you want to talk
the
about.
bottom line of this is that, the digital marketing landscape is changing. There's been sort of a tectonic shift that's happened over the last year or so, with the data that is available to us as marketers and to you as business owners. And we have no choice but to shift with it. I mean, you said a couple of times on here, the golden age has passed. There were years there where, we had all of the information in the world, and you just put a little bit of money into something like Facebook and you could reach 1 million people and sell $1 billion worth of product. And that's just not the case anymore. I think people thought that was going to be the new trend, and it turned out that was kind of a spike or a blip in the system. Now we have to look back to what things were before then, and lean on some of the more traditional marketing tactics with updated alternative marketing or new marketing tools.
Yep.
So it's a high-tech version of what we had 5, 10, 15 years ago, because a lot of those things really stay the same. A lot of those principles of selling, of marketing stay the same. Mm-hmm. We just have a new toolkit at our disposal. So I think there's 2 things that we can look at here that I don't think that we addressed directly in this conversation that I want to throw out there. In addition to everything you talked about there, kind of the old school marketing techniques and increasing retention and developing relationships with your customers, I think that we need to be looking at the data that we do have, measuring everything that we possibly can. And while we can't maybe track individuals, there are still overarching trend lines that we can look at, so we can understand where something's coming from. And while maybe we don't have third-party tracking on different platforms, each of these different platforms have their own tracking. So if you are advertising on Snapchat or something, Snapchat has its own tools for data analytics and everything. And if they aren't necessarily tracking an individual and keeping a bunch of creepy information on them, they're still looking at overarching trends as to what is popular and what is not, what's getting the eyeballs on it, what's not. And some of that can be attributed to certain marketable trends or demographics or something that you can use in your marketing. So even if we have less data than we used to, we're still in the information age. There's still tons of data out there. You just got to be a little bit smarter about how you use it, and please leverage the information that you have out there. And that means starting everything from analysis. You got to do some measuring. You got to do some analytics and figure out what's working and what's not. Basically use what information you have, what data you do have at your disposal. And then secondly, one thing we have talked about on this show before is doing more creator first marketing, where this is, you are putting your attention more into a show. Think about it like the old TV marketing or something. You couldn't target your ad to a specific individual that happens to fit X, Y, and Z criteria, but you did know that a particular demographic watches this show, and so you can throw your ad into that show. Now there's kind of the new age version of that, where there's tons of amazing content creators out there. They all kind of have their own little niches and their own audiences, and it can be super cost effective and incredibly beneficial for brands to find one that kind of fits their niche or fits their demographic and start marketing with them. That's one way you can kind of circumvent this whole new shift in things and still market directly to the people who matter to you most.
Yeah, definitely. And I do have a story about Snapchat and some new tools coming up.
Perfect.
So that was a nice little transition there as well. And just to just to point out too, we can still track individuals, remarket individuals, target individuals, so to speak. We just have to do it through zero and first party data, and not rely on the third-party tools as much. It's not that they've gone away yet, but they've gotten less reliable. And so here's another hack for the people out there that we've talked about before on the show, but you got to be getting zero and first-party data from your customers and your potential customers, because there is nothing more valuable right now than having a really good list. Because
and defining that real quick for people who haven't been watching us for
people that directly opt in to give you their information, basically, right? So the example that we use all the time for people is building an email list and getting everybody who is doing business with you, is potentially interested in doing business with you, or just wants to hear from you once in a while, into that email list and that ecosystem, because then we can put that into custom audiences, into a LinkedIn or a Facebook or something like that campaign, and we can directly target those people still. There are just kind of added steps that we have to go about it. And the other thing I'll point out is that platforms like Facebook and LinkedIn or whatever, they're battling this as best they can. At least they're telling us they are. And they're trying to put different things in place that will give us good reporting and good campaigns in the future. But right now it's a little bit of a gray area. So you have to bob and weave. Okay. I know that I usually get cut off here at the hour mark, so I'm going to try to go through these. I've got about 7 minutes before I'm going to get just boop taken off air here. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, or at least I'm going to plan on it, but you know how it goes. Okay. Well, here's the other reason why this is super important, and why I think that quote before was so good, that if you don't understand digital, I'm paraphrasing, if you can't figure out this digital advertising thing, you're not going to scale past $3 million in top line revenue. Like, you're never going to become a large company. And the reason why, I'm going to tell you right now with this article. Shoppers returning to their earlier pandemic behavior, research finds. Consumers are retrenching in the face of the Delta variant and the coronavirus, with 20% highly optimistic about a return to normal, down from a third at the beginning of the summer, according to Numerator Research. Nearly 60% are very or somewhat concerned about holiday plans being disrupted by the pandemic, according to Berkeley Research Group. The number of people who said they had resumed pre-COVID behaviors fell for the first time from 39% in July to 27% in August. Nearly half say that they expect a full reopening to be delayed until 2022 or later, up from 23% in July and 18% in June. Here's the kicker. The comfort level of shopping without a mask dropped 15% from points from July to August, with 34% preferring to go in stores with mask requirements and 36% having a higher level of respect for a business enforcing a mask. After waning this year, troublesome uncertainty is gaining strength, and the Delta variant of the virus spreads and immunization rates in many areas falter. Wells Fargo economists noted that the new COVID-19 cases were averaging about 100,000 daily at the time of their August economic outlook report, but had risen to more than As a result, Americans have generally become more cautious. So what does this mean? People are getting afraid again to go into stores. So where are they going to be shopping? Online. Okay, they're reverting back to the same behaviors that we saw at the beginning of the pandemic, when online shopping and e-commerce and m-commerce and every other kind of commerce besides walking into a physical store hit record levels and all-time highs. So again, if you thought that we were all just going to go back to the way it was, I'm sorry, that's not looking like the way it's going to happen. And again, if we're not being effective with our online strategies, and our online presence isn't up to par, we're going to lose market voice, we're going to lose market share, we're going to lose bottom line revenue and top line revenue. That's all really wanted to point out. There's a whole lot more in that article, Miles, but I'm going to keep it going unless you had something.
It's a complicated world today. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, wait, here's one more.
All right.
Many consumers are falling back into their cautious pandemic ways. That includes shopping online more. Nearly 60% will use a mix of online and in-person shopping for the holidays, but just 13% plan to shop entirely in physical stores, while 24% plan to shop entirely online. That's an 11% gap between people who are like, I'm only going to a store and I'm only going online. That's a pretty big gap. And let me also, again, we are going to bring this back to the positive, but we like to give both sides of the story here. There's also going to be some, I'm afraid, some complications, let's say, during this fall and winter shopping season, outside of just people being afraid to go into stores. And I'm talking about supply chain issues. Asia is becoming a mess again. Vietnam is a disaster right now as far as the factories goes, and there's going to be massive shortages across a whole lot of different product lines. And so that's going to hit with the demand of the biggest shopping season of the year, and we have rising inflation as well. That's not a very good storm, sort of brewing out there in the distance. And so the more that you can have your online store, full of inventory, easy to navigate, easy to find, customer friendly, and you have great, customer retention and upsell procedures in place, the more that you're going to win over the next, 6 months at the minimum compared to your competition. So please, 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 heed these warnings with a lot of seriousness, and do what you need to do to make yourself be able to strive and survive in these times. Okay.
Yeah, and anything that you can do to alleviate stress on inventory and big spikes, I'm thinking things like gift cards, or other creative solutions, kind of
or
working
even just
around
using
that.
drop shipping. We have a partner with our e-commerce, right? That people can basically have things merchandise, a wide variety of products printed on demand.
Right.
You can also, do experiments, do tests and things like that, figure out what your audience wants, and then order those in bulk ahead of time if you're worried about those not being, available when things get, down to the crunch time. But yeah, there's a lot of different things that you can do now in order to avoid this, potential mess that we're going to see here in the next few months. Okay, but again, that's enough doom and gloom. We're going to keep it positive.
Happy story.
And I only got to think of 1 or 2 more minutes. They're going to cut me off. Okay. This is an update, Miles, on a story that we did several months ago. Taco Bell tests Taco Lovers Pass 1 year after rewards program launched. So this was Taco Bell's rewards program that they launched about a year ago. We covered it here on the show. It is a loyalty rewards program done through their app. And after purchasing a 30-day pass, guests unlock a Taco Lovers Pass category on the app, and then they get to basically choose from different kinds of taco. The program has garnered a 35% increase in overall spending from active loyalty members, and that's not a small amount. All right, I'm going to keep it going here.
That's a huge spike.
Yeah. Burger King introduces a Keep It Real meals, after banning 120 artificial ingredients. I just thought that was kind of noteworthy in terms of a brand shift that they have, started to market themselves as a more healthier fast food alternative by banning 120 artificial ingredients. All right, Snapchat. Sorry, I'm going fast now. Snapchat eyes marketers with social listening tools to track trends. Snapchat trends give marketers competitive intelligence and another way to gauge consumer sentiment about a brand, product, or campaign. So long story short, everything that people are saying on Snapchat is being listened to, and then bots are basically turning that into data that us marketers are going to use to understand you guys better in order so we can serve better ads to more targeted people in face of all these changes, which goes back to what we were talking about before. There's going to be new technology, there's going to be new tools to leverage once some of these third-party, things become obsolete. And so the more you understand that and incorporate it now, the easier you're going to be able to navigate this and have a leg up on your competition.
That's exactly the kind of thing I was talking about with in-app platforms or in-platform technologies and more broader trends rather than just looking at individuals or targeting individuals, because that kind of technology is super smart, and it's not just looking at what one person says. It's looking at what everyone is saying, how many times a particular word is used, what's the context in which it is used, is it positive, is it negative? And so we can say, 30% of whatever people are saying this word in a positive context, and therefore us as marketers, we can leverage that language in order to jump on new breaking trends, or get in front of the right people and get a message in front of in front of the right people. Those 100%. Kinds of new technologies are just exactly the kind of smarter way that I was talking about, moving away from third-party tracking and data and into other smarter ways of presenting our information to the right people at the right time on these platforms.
Yeah. Don't worry, we'll still get you. You can only hide for so long.
Oh boy, and that's why they think marketing is creepy. It's because people like you. That's what happens.
Okay. You will buy this now. Okay.
Well, done correctly, it's a good thing. We're putting information in front of people that they want to see in the first place. Products in front of people that they want to see in the first place.
Yeah. So it's just a good time to remind everybody you only can use those powers for good, never for evil.
Absolutely.
That is the code. Okay, last thing, and then I'm done. Jersey Mike's teams up with Fan Hub on an in-app college football trivia game. So just another way to leverage it. Yeah, another way to leverage an app to get consumer relationships deepened and engagement. Jersey Mike's Subs is reviving its college football tailgate tour in partnership with Fox Sports. They're actually going to 14 different football games across 14 different cities beginning this month. And then they are also promoting the tour, of course, online and through the digital app. And the interest is in this mobile app by bringing back a familiar campaign that uses digital and experimental elements to reach a range of consumers. So, quick little bow on this. What do these last 4 or 5 stories all have in common? Leveraging a mobile app to understand, engage, and market to their end consumer better. And that is the main takeaway here that I want everybody to have, is that if you don't have a mobile app for your small or medium sized business, yes, you can do that. It's not out of your scope. And yes, you will be able to leverage these kinds of tools, these kinds of strategies in order to deepen engagement and brand loyalty, which is going to become ever so critical in the near and far future. That's all I got, Miles, from the news desk.
I love it.
I'll send it back to you to wrap it up, folks. Appreciate
Beautiful point to wrap it up on. I think there was a lot of awesome commonalities, through lines through all those stories, like you said, leveraging technology, mobile apps, and social media specifically to drive new engagement and increase customer retention, all of the different trends that we've just been talking about. Mm-hmm. The biggest companies, the biggest platforms, the biggest powers that be in the world are all doing this. So us as small business should be doing that as well. Looks like we officially lost Mike, so I'm going to take that as my cue to wrap up the show. Thanks for watching Ask Wildman. Come back next Wednesday at 11. We'll be live streaming again to our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch channels. Or if you want to see more content like this and find some new awesome free resources that we've put together for you, go to wildmanweb.com, and we've got tons of awesome stuff there. Otherwise, I will see you all next week. Thanks.